Welcome to Unfold Data Science, friends. My name is Aman and I am a data scientist. In this particular video, I am going to touch upon the interview questions in K-means clustering. So I have listed here some of the areas or some of the topics around which interviewer will try to evaluate your understanding when it comes to K-means clustering. Okay. I will also discuss in detail what are the different questions in these areas. But first of all, you need to understand what are these areas. Okay. So first is, guys, convergence. What is convergence? Convergence is how the clusters are formed or how the clusters are concluded. Okay. Then comes the internal maths, right? So I was explaining in detail how K-means clustering work in my last video. The link is here. You can watch that video if you have not watched. I have explained in detail how K-means work. Okay. There will be some questions around that as well. Next is K. K means number of clusters in K-means, right? So there are few questions I will discuss, and then application of K-means clustering. So how K-means clustering is applied in industry and many things around that. Okay. Let's start from first area, guys, convergence. Okay. First of all, at the moment you say that you know K-means clustering or you have worked on K-means clustering, the very first question I will ask you if I am interviewing you is, what are the pros and cons of K-means clustering? What are the positives and negatives of K-means clustering? What comes to your mind, guys? Some of the positive points of K-means clustering is it is easy to understand, it is easy to implement, right? Easy to understand and implement. And if you want to explain someone how clustering is working, that is also not very difficult to explain. That is another part. What are some of the negatives, guys? Very first negative point about K-means clustering is it is very much influenced by outliers and centroid initialization. Now it is a very important concept, guys. Please try to understand carefully what I am going to explain now. Okay. So in my last video I told you if there are few data points that I need to create clusters on, okay, then the very first step what K-means will do is it will choose, let's say you say K is equal to 2 or 3 for example. It will take 3 random points and it will assume these are the initial centroids. Remember, I am saying random here. Imagine, guys, if those 2 random points are here, 1 point here and 1 point here. Now what do you think will happen? Will it converge faster or slower? Converge means creating the final clusters. It will converge slower, right? What happens if in random initialization one centroid is somewhere here and one centroid is somewhere here? Will it converge faster or slower? It will converge faster. Why? Because the initialization of the centroid is good in this case. It is quite possible that initialization of the centroid may be very poor. Quite possible because it is a random initialization. What will happen in that case? In that case, the convergence will be very slow, and hence we say that K-means clustering is very much influenced by initialization of centroid. Point number 1. Point number 2, it is very much sensitive to outliers also. So K-means clustering is nothing but grouping similar atoms together based on the distances, right? Now it will try to capture all the data points in the sample in one or other cluster. Imagine there is an outlier data point. Outlier is somewhere here. Now in order to capture this data point in any of these 2 clusters, what will happen is the existing cluster balance will get disturbed. Hence K-means clustering is very much sensitive to outliers as well. Next thing I want you to understand, if we are discussing centroid and convergence, is what is K-means plus plus. Okay, so interviewer might ask you what is K-means plus plus and how it works or how it is better than normal K-means. So what K-means plus plus does is, in this initial random initialization of centroid, right, the initialization of centroid will be in such a way that the convergence will be faster. So what you have to do is, when you are calling K-means in Python, you have to write an argument like this. INIT means initialization. is equal to k means plus plus. Okay, if you give this argument right, you can give random also, which I discussed now. If you give k means plus plus, what will happen is the initialization of this centroid will be in a smart way. What is that smart way? The smart way is, first it will initialize only one centroid, okay, and it will ensure that the next centroid, if you are calling k is equal to 2, the next centroid is assigned far from this centroid. So I'm just giving you a high level understanding of k means plus plus. If the next centroid is far from this centroid, then what happens, guys? There is a less possibility that centroids will be poorly initialized. If one is here, one will be somewhere far, let's say here or here or here, we don't know, it will not be closer, okay. So the convergence might be faster, and that is what is smart in k means plus plus. That is another answer to the questions around k means plus plus. Okay, next area which interviewer will touch you is internal maths. I strongly recommend you to watch my previous video for this, where I have explained in detail how it works, how the centroid shift happens, and how the new centroid is calculated, how the points are assigned. Okay, in this one, interviewer might ask you questions around what are different distance matrices you can use. I have created a video on different distance matrices, you can see. Also, interviewer might ask you what is the importance of standardization in k-means. Let us understand this also very clearly, guys. Standardization or variable scaling, you can say. So all of you know by now that k-means clustering, the distance is computed using some distance matrices. For example, simplicity, let us take Euclidean distance. So we say that Euclidean distance between 2 points is nothing but x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. Right? Right? This is the Euclidean. Now, suppose there are two variables in the data. One variable is age and other variable is, let us say, salary. Just two variables in the data, age and salary. Okay, so what will be the range of age variable, guys? Maybe in the range of 20 to 60. Just roughly I'm writing some range. What will be the range of salary variable, guys? Maybe in the range of, let us say, 100k to just some rough range, 150k. Now what is happening here is the scale of these two variables are different. What I'm trying to say you here is magnitude of one shift in age is a good percentage shift, or let us take 5 for simplicity. Magnitude of 5, if you shift in age, it is a good shift. But magnitude of 5, if you shift in salary, it is not a, it is a negligible shift. So what we have to do is, when these two variables go into this formula here, the variable which is on larger scale will suppress the variable which is on smaller scale, and the impact of age will not be captured very clearly, and hence you have to scale the variable. What are the scaling techniques? Min max scaler you can do, standard scaling you can do. So what these techniques will do? These will just try to bring all the variables on one scale, and then you can run all these distance matrices. These are the questions around your internal mathematics of k-means. Okay, next comes k. Interviewer will ask you, how do you decide the optimal number of clusters? Now it is a very generic answer, guys. If you directly drop and say, there is a elbow method we use that elbow method, but you need to talk few more things around this. Okay, suppose, guys, you run a what kind of example I should give? Suppose you run a t-shirt shop. Okay, so you sell t-shirts, that's an online store. Okay, now from your selling experience, you might be having some idea about what kind of customers are buying your t-shirts. Some customers might be buying very frequently. Some customers might be buying in holidays. Some customers might be buying in festive seasons. So you have some idea about how many buckets roughly of customers I will have. Same applies to any business. Okay, so every time somebody asks you how do you decide optimal number of k, do not directly say that by elbow method. Okay, you have to say little, you have to relate it with the business. Business input is important here. Suppose the data you are working on, you have some person who understands the business, the domain, that person might be able to give you a decent idea of what should be the optimal K. That is one part of it. Other part of it is, of course, the elbow method, where we see that which number of clusters is giving least within sum of squares. Not obviously least, but a decent decrease, because we can't go beyond a limit in K. Elbow method, you will get many materials on internet, but what I am trying to tell you here is, do not directly jump onto elbow method. Every time you talk of K, you have to think and get information in terms of business as well. You club your mathematical knowledge with the business, and then you can come on to your optimal number of K. Another question from this and elbow method is, suppose this is your elbow curve, okay, something like this, okay. So some people I have seen, they ask in interview that why it is an elbow, why not a sine curve, or why not a different shape, why it's like this, why it's not like this, why it's not like this, why it's not like some other shape, why? The reason for that is very simple, guys. Suppose you have 10 data points, suppose you have 10 points to cluster, okay. Imagine that if your K is 10, then what happens? All of these points are one cluster. All of these points will be one cluster, right? So what will be within cluster sum of squares, which is on y-axis here, or inertia, what I explained in last video? That will be 0, because there is no other data point in one cluster, right? Which means at maximum value of K, this should tend to 0. And at minimum value of K, minimum means 1. At 1, all the points, all these 10 points will be in one cluster only. And hence, more points means more variance. More points means within cluster sum of squares will be more. And that is where it is mostly an elbow. It is never like some other curve. So you keep increasing number of clusters and more points will go to other clusters, and hence as total the inertia will come down. You keep increasing number of clusters, your inertia will keep coming down, and that is where it looks like an elbow. Okay, this is the questions around K. Now the thing comes around the application. So around application they might ask you, okay, so you have fit a K-means clustering, now how do you use it? Okay, so just to give some simple idea to you, K-means clustering is nothing but grouping. People can make different promotion strategies, different sales strategies. In different ways you can use your cluster. If you are selling some products, let's say you do a product clustering, all the low selling product come in one cluster, high selling product come in one cluster. You can analyze those low selling products. Sometimes before doing supervised machine learning also, we try to do some clustering before, and then try to fit different models for different clusters. These are some of the from application point of view. As I'm talking this, I'm getting one more question in my mind. People might ask you, what was the accuracy of your K-means clustering? Now remember guys, that is a trap. You know that K-means clustering is an unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Hence, you will not have a direct accuracy number as you have in a supervised machine learning, right? You do not have a target column here. So you will not have a 80% accuracy, 85% accuracy, something like that. Cannot measure that. There are ways in which you can evaluate your cluster. One such way is known as, you should talk these things in the interview if interviewer touches these topics, okay? One such way is known as Shilhote score, okay? So remember I was telling you in last video, the purpose of doing clustering is two purposes, okay? One purpose is the points in the cluster should be close to each other. That is one purpose. And other purpose is the clusters should be far from each other. Okay, the points within the cluster should be close and the cluster should be far. If you take your t-shirt example, people who are buying t-shirts in holidays, these people should closely be associated with each other. And people who are buying throughout the year, these people should be in other cluster and this cluster should be far from that cluster. That is how you say it is a good cluster, right? To measure the goodness of your cluster, we use a metric called Shilhote score. What Shilhote score does is, it sees how well a particular point is fitting in your cluster, and it gives you an overall score of your cluster, all the clusters through a score, okay? that score varies between -1 to +1. More closer this Silhouette score to +1, your clusters are better. More closer it is to 0 or -1, your clusters are not that good. Okay, what it is checking internally? It is checking if those two things are satisfied, which I explained just now. After we discuss all this, I want to put here a question and I want you to answer me in comment. Okay, I can answer but I will not answer now. I want you to do some research and answer me in comment. Why k-means clustering is called only k-means, not a-means or z-means or s-means or p-means? Why the name is k-means? Why not some other means? Do little research, write me in comment. And any doubts if you have in this, of course you are free to write me in comment. I'll definitely respond to you guys. Let me know how did you like this video through likes and comments. I'll see you all in the next video guys. Till then, wherever you are, stay safe and take care.